Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our next topic, which I'm going to call moral thinking. I know part of the reading called this moral and political thinking. Don't know that it's helpful to mash those together, and I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. And I also just think that we can stick to moral thinking and cover the bases. That's probably safer. So we'll stick to that this week. Why are we going to do this topic on moral thinking? Well, I want you all to think about a lot of the arguments that we are looking at that you're engaging with in the world and all these resources and then making yourself unmoral. There are stories about what you should do, about what obligations you have, about ways the world are or should be. And that really, at times, is not helpfully answered by the scientific method. Now, some people, some thinkers think you can use the scientific method to actually learn about the world around us in terms of ethics and morality. I think a major contemporary philosopher of this nature is Sam Harris. But certainly you could use the scientific method in the sense of you could run stories and experiments and discover that way moral truths. That still being said, the thing that we do in moral thinking is relevantly dissimilar to what we do in scientific thinking. Think about scientific thinking, some of those components. We might be able to use a scientific method to discover moral facts, because that whole process of experimentation just might be helpful to discover facts more generally. Scientific thinking was doing something with causal statements that revealed the nature of what science does. So you could start with my mom's parents, and my biological grandparents, my biological great-grandparents, and so on, so on, so on, till we get to the first humans, then we get to the great apes, then we get to the first mammals, then we go all the way back till we have multicellular life, till we have all of these things. You could sort of imagine this is time, and we're here in the present. The Big Bang happens here, and then we might have atoms forming, then we might have the formation of planets, then we might have multicellular life on Earth, then we might have humans emerge, right? Here's a story about time, and science could say, well, what caused this? That caused it. 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 And so on, so on, so on. And then the Big Bang is just sort of supposed to be in science this final thing that we can't go back beyond. But there are still effects of gamma radiation that we still feel today. And so the effects are here, and we're sort of going through causes. But I said science stops here at the Big Bang. Why does science stop here at the Big Bang? Because the Big Bang has no effect. It is not the effect of anything. Or if it is the effect of anything, it's effect of something like God. And we sort of can't do an experiment right now on the capacity of God to create the Big Bang. So here is a sort of story of science. Remember, it's telling us what happened and how. Moral thinking does something different. Why did the Big Bang happen? Some people might say, God. Science cannot explain to me why the Big Bang came to be. All it can do is tell me what happened and how that set off a chain of causes and events. This type of thinking, called moral thinking, tries to tell me why. Why did humans emerge from multicellular life? Is it because there is a God and that God wanted us to develop from multicellular life? This causal thing can tell me about evolution and the origin of species or whatever, and it can tell me the theories of Charles Darwin. This pink line might tell me why it is that we live in a universe where the laws of natural selection even exist. We have atoms forming here. If the laws of thermodynamics change, if the laws of gravity change, if the laws of motion change, this doesn't happen and the entire history gets wiped out. Science tells me what happened, atoms formed, and how it happened, those laws. Can't tell me why the law of thermodynamics exists in the world. It's just a fact. It can't tell me why the law of motions exists. It can't tell me why it just tells me what exists and how that makes things happen. Moral thinking wants to know why. Let's get on from the universe to our everyday, introduce you to what's called the trolley problem. This is my crew drawing. This is a trolley. A trolley is like a fancy type of car, or like a train. And it's on these tracks. And it's going to go this pink direction where there are 3 people tied down to the track. You're over here, and you happen to be right next to this lever that's connected to the track. And if you pull this lever, the trolley, instead of hitting these 3 people and killing them, will kill 1 person. Should you pull the lever? Let's say you don't pull the lever, and this trolley ends up killing these 3 people, and I show up to the scene. Let's say I'm a scientist first. Well, what's happened? 3 people have died. Make an observation. Why did they die? Well, I have a hypothesis that they were hit by a trolley, and you didn't save their life. There's my scientific theory. I said what happened. They were hit by a trolley. And how it happened, based on your choice, you didn't save their life. Why didn't you save their life? That's a moral question. If you think it's a question of psychology, if you think ethics and values and all these things are just sort of psychological phenomenon, then maybe you think that there's no real distinction here. That's fine. A lot of people think that there are autonomous decisions we make, and to say that you're running an experiment here when choosing to pull the lever or not pull the lever seems really disingenuous. You didn't want to take responsibility, we'll say, for killing that person, so you just didn't touch the lever. You wanted to leave yourself out of it. In that story, I could tell you what happened. 3 people got hit by the trolley. And how that happened, it's because you didn't choose to save their life, you didn't choose to pull the lever. I can tell you what and how happened, but why you did it, that story of I didn't want to take responsibility for killing them, it's not something I can test. I can't test why you did something. That's a moral choice you made. These types of moral decisions we make, the author notes, are correlated with different types of theory. The major 3 we'll look at are deontology, consequentialism, and virtue ethics. I'll demonstrate the difference to you really quickly here. Deontology associates right action with duty. The duty to not kill people, or the duty to save lives. The act itself is what's important in deontology. Consequentialism, you're worried about the results or the consequences. So for consequentialism, that's where you're worried about. Do you kill 3 people or do you kill 1 person? The thing you worry about are the consequences. Virtue ethics, you worry about what's called the agent. That's you. What is an agent? It's the person who makes the choice to act or makes the decision. So a virtue ethicist might say, what would a good person do? For deontology, you ask the question of why at the level of the act itself. Do I have a duty or moral obligation to do this act? If you're a consequentialist, you look at the consequences of your actions, which will cause more harm. If you're a virtue ethicist, you look at yourself. If I was a virtuous person, or if I was the ideal person, what would I do? So you can ask this question of why you do things at the level of the acts you do, the consequences of your actions, or at the level of yourself as an agent, or other people out there that inspire your actions. Other major difference, and this is actually really important for politics discussions, so I'll mention it, is the distinction of material, agential, and structural. Well, what's material? This scenario. Material is asking you, what happens? A person dies. Agential asks you, what is your role? And structural asks you, how did we get there? So if I wanted to make a material analysis of the situation, I would go, the stakes are someone will die. If I wanted to make an agential analysis, I would go, what can I do? I can choose if 3 or 1 person dies. And structural analysis would say something like, how do the structures around me get me here in the first place? It would ask something like, why are the people tied to the tracks in the first place? Being able to actually know that you can think about acts themselves, the consequences of acts, and also you as an agent of actions is super helpful. And it's also super helpful to think about what it is you're looking at, your role as an agent in that, And then also the way structures around you actually push you into those situations. This is super helpful to think about why. But notice the difference between scientific thinking and moral thinking and the levels at which I can perform moral thought.